Welcome to an awesome day of FileMaker training. It's Friday. Welcome everyone to Friday. Today is, if I go to fmtrain.tv, what is today? Today is on multi-file solutions. We're continuing our conversation on, if you go to fmtrain.tv, you've got the various buttons here. The left button right here shows you the schedule for the next 6 days. Today is going to be on multi-file solutions. It's beginner question, open answer day. So definitely ask questions today. We do have Jay here, so if things get really questionable, I can bring Jay over and he can help me. But the open answer question today. Okay, so back in the old days, so let's just cover this real quick historically. Back in the old days, FileMaker, and the reason this is relevant because you still see leftovers of this today. And this is for you too, Margaret, so pay attention. Back in the day, when you built the FileMaker solution was limited to 32 megabytes in size. Every file was a table. Okay, her brain just exploded. Okay, I'm watching Margaret with that clueless look. You could have multiple tables. Each table was a file. So you had a folder, your CM, so your CRM, invoices, contacts, communications, projects, all the notes, whatever that was in there. Each table was a file. All the files lived in a single folder or directory. So your solution wasn't a single file. It was 20 or 30 files in a directory. Yes. And then you still had relationships and stuff. That still, so if you had a solution that was built in the FileMaker, when did they fix that? I think that was FileMaker 7. If you have a solution that's that's like 20 or 30 files in a folder, that was originally created prior to FileMaker 7, and it was migrated or moved forward. Now, you can still have someone who builds it that way optionally. For beginners, all of you folks out there, I always say, please, please, please use a single file on your solution. It's a lot easier to maneuver a single file around. There will be times in the future, and we can talk about this today, where you want to break the data in the tables out to different files because like one table is super fat, super big, and you want to be able to maybe be, if it's a problem, you can replace it with a different one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and this also gets into probably us covering the security component of that, right? The security component, because if you have multiple files, the files have to, the files fundamentally back in the old days, if you're in a folder, right? And I don't even have a copy of this. You'd have to go back to, man, this is old. But if you were in, let me just go to CRM here, and we'll just look at this from that standpoint. So here's a CRM. I go into field definitions. I go into field definitions right here. Here are the tables, right? So each one of these is a file in a folder. Okay. So you have an accounts, and it's accounts.fmp12, and then assets.fmp12, and blah, 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 and they're all in there. And then the relational diagram still looks like this, right? Because they're all cross-connected, right? And so what would happen is that one of the attack vectors that some of the more clever people in the community did was that they would come over here to your solution, and they would say, like they had access to your solution, they would pull out one of the files, say it's assets or preferences or something, and they would put their own file in with the same file name, swap it out with their own file, and then put an auto enter password so it automatically opens as an admin, and then they kind of back channel. They can't really see the other data, but they can get that data through a relationship, and they could strip all the data out of the other file and read it. So there is a deflector security setting that allows you to prevent this. It's also on the certification test. Yes, so going back to that, but I'm just simply saying that it used to be on the certification test. So anyway, so that's a certification material there on this stuff. So if I go back over here, I say tables and fields. So fields, so each table would be a file. And then the limits on it at the time were 32 megabytes, not gigabytes, megabytes of data. Okay. Then they in FileMaker 7, they allowed them to be combined together, and the file couldn't exceed 2 gigabytes. And then somewhere after FileMaker 7, they basically opened it up to the point where if your computer explodes, then your file's too big, basically, which means we're talking probably a terabyte database or something. I've the biggest database. Well, what kills databases is the containers. So what you do is you put the containers externally or something like that, and then you can have, then the database itself is pretty small. But if you have like images in one table, then that file becomes 10 gigs, 20 gigs, 30 gigs, 40 gigs. I have a solution, my aviation solution is 40 or 50 gigabytes. Not with videos in it. Generally, it's PDFs and manuals and things like that, things I have to know. So I'm happy to, I think this conversation is a really wide conversation. I want to answer questions along the way. If you have any questions on multi-file solutions, please ask. The reason the multi-file solution is a pain in the ass is because every file has its own relationship diagram, right? So when you're in a CRM like this, we go to relationships, this is the totality of the relationship diagram. If I come over here and I zoom down, and it's kind of small, and that's the point. This is the totality of all the relationships in the system. If you have 32 files, you have to go field definition relationships on 32 times to see all the possible relationships that are driving the system. In fact, what happens is that, notice that you have a layout in FileMaker I'm looking at you, Margaret, a layout in FileMaker belongs to a table occurrence, which essentially means it belongs to a table, which means a layout belongs to the table, and that table belongs to a file. So certain layouts, a layout for contacts must be, if it's all separated, it must be in the contacts file. And if you have an invoices as a separate table in a separate file, the layout invoices, layout data entry, and layout list view are in the invoices file. So your layouts are spread over 32 locations. But this is the old school stuff. And so you're going to see this. Why people say, well, why do you talk about that? If I went out to a quarter of the solutions that are out there flying around the internet, 20%, 30%, some number like that, they're going to have like 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 files. And you're like, what moron did this? And the answer is, that was the way it had to be built back in the day. And Claris never built a consolidation tool to consolidate things because it was really difficult to consolidate stuff. And so people come to me and say, Richard, we want to consolidate the solution. And it's not like an hour or two of work. Is that you have to go, remember the other day we talked about duplicating items. So you duplicate the custom functions, you duplicate the list views, you duplicate some of the layout. There was like 12-point steps on how to duplicate something. We have to follow 12-point steps for all these tables and do a lot of manual cleanup and work in there to put it all back together. Then you have to QA it. A lot of people are like, we don't want to do that. Now, in the case of Starting Point, the first version of Starting Point was in FileMaker 10. It was already a single file solution back in FileMaker 10, so it never was split. My internal system, which is called BC8, because it was engineered, actually it was originally in BC7, it was engineered in FileMaker 7, but before that it existed as multiple files. I personally did the reconsolidation or consolidation of the files into a single file back in 2001 or 2000 or something, whenever that FileMaker 7 came out. So questions about this? The best works when the data is collected in a single blob. You can reference data and variables within. I think that's yesterday, the chart conversation from Code to Go. So questions along the way, right? Yes. So where would you in modern day have where you would have like external separate files? Okay. The answer is anywhere where backups are an issue and or performance is an issue because so much data is in one table. Okay. So that's kind of, it's really that. So if you don't have any giant container, because now with basically containers with external storage, aka remote containers, right, where the image is stored externally, right? We all know about that because we've talked about that quite a few times. If you don't know, ask me, we'll direct you to a video to watch. But the idea is that if the images are all stored externally, then none of your FMP12 file doesn't get ginormous, right? If I go into Let's see, go in here. We have a question. How about shared in multiple organizations, different front end, to need to access a common set of documents? Yeah, so that's a good one. So Ken, our hot air balloon Ken just popped the question. Hot air balloon Ken says, how about a shared solution? Shared meaning with different teams of users who have different goals and objectives, with multiple organizations that have different front end or need different access common set of documents. Yeah, so say you have a documents that you want everyone to share, maybe even different work groups within a large organization. Say it's Apple Inc. uses a ton of FileMaker. They could have like a documents file, like contracts that are saved in a table on a server, okay? And then the rest of your solution is, say, one file with 20 different tables. So like, say like FM starting point, and you access this one externally referenced file, right? So we can go through this real quick. But here's the thing, with multi-file solutions, this is cool. With multi-file solutions, you can put different files on different servers because performance is getting kind of bad, right? However, when it comes to PSOS and SASE, you'd have to check to make sure that PSOS on the server or SASE on the server could open a remote file on another server. That has been in years gone by an illegal thing. I don't know if it currently is illegal, but these are the considerations you need to make, right? So if you have SASE or PSOS on the same server, all the files are there, then it can run great, because SASE and PSOS are how we kind of speed things up. However, if you had 3 or 4 different groups and they all had their own solution, all those solutions could be on the same server, or you could put them on different servers, but they could still externally reference one file. So let's just say, for fun, that we're over here. So I'm going to go ahead and show that again. I'm going to say File, create a new file, right? I could call it a blank file. I could call it contracts. And let's just say that we're going to save the documents internally. I don't think that's the greatest idea on the planet, but you could have contracts, and it created as a text file. Then you have contracts container. Well, you can still have the container in here. That'd be fine, but then have it all externally. That'd be okay, right? So we're going to create a container. And then we say, now, what, test question, what is this container internally stored or externally stored? If I define it like this, and there's nothing over here, if I save images in here or something in here, will those data be stored internally or externally if there's nothing here on this line? I know you know, Ken. Hush, back row. I'm going to put you on timeout if you be bad. I need someone. And Larry says internally, correct. Larry gets it correct. Larry's more of an intermediate developer. Intermittently, he's senior sometimes. And that's kind of my life. I spend my time mostly doing intermediate stuff and sometimes senior stuff. So if there's nothing here, it means it's internally stored. If I hit container and I hit options and I hit the auto enter, what do you auto enter in a container? Not much. Validation, you're really using this stuff is probably bad juju. Storage, click the button right here. Not global storage, sorry. Right here, sorry. That's how you make it into a global. That would be dumb. Container, right? I just recommend secure storage just for doing lots and lots and lots of documents. We've covered this before, but it's not about security so much as it is that it helps chop things up in different directories, and it helps keep the computer from having 5 or 10,000 items in a single directory. The operating system starts to struggle when you put 10,000 or 20,000 items in a directory. So I say secure storage. I say it's going to save it locally. In this case, it's a local file, but it'd be on the FileMaker server. But that's also a good point up here on this. So that's how you set that. But what if you have a global field or a global variable or local, any variable? So global variable, local variable, global field. If those are defined in file A, are they accessible in file B? The two fields, they're related together. They're related. Can you see the global data? Can you access the global data? Variables, definitely not. Globals, maybe. I almost never use multi-file solutions anymore, but variables definitely are not cross. They're situationally located in the file. Global fields, no, we could try that. Let's do that. We'll do that along the way. So I'm going to say that right there. I'm going to say global test field I'm gonna say that's just gonna be text. I'm gonna say okay. I'm gonna say options. I'm gonna store it as a global. I'm gonna hit okay. I'm gonna hit okay. Right. So contracts. So we have this over here. I'm gonna put, I'll put nuclear launch codes. Okay. Those are in there. This is a global, right? I'm pretty sure it's a global. Field definitions. It is a global. That naming TET field. Yeah, it's this, I can't spell. So we're over here on this starting solution, this solution right here. I'm gonna say file, manage, external data sources. External data sources will be either an external FileMaker file or a path to a path that you'd use for import or exporting, or it can be like an ODBC thing over here, right? See that, right? So ODBC. Actually, can you do imports, exports over here? That's a file path to find that file. So see, it's on, file path to find, it's a network file. This one here would be local, but it's getting the path out of a global. So yeah, all external data sources cannot be a text field. You can't do imports and exports out of FileMaker, so that would make sense. But all these in here are going to be a FileMaker file or some sort of SQL ODBC data source. So I'm going to say create new. I'm going to call it container test. I'll just make it TET. Container TET. That way it's all consistent. And then you specify ODBC is automatically senior engineering stuff. Your head will explode. You'll hate it. Hit add file. You have to identify the file. So I'm looking for, is it contracts? I guess that's contracts right there. So you hit OK. And so this is the path for it. It's a specific absolute path. I hit OK. So now I hit OK. And now both files are open. Once again, this, you have to have access, the appropriate, I would simply say the access, the passwords don't have to match on either one. They don't. It's easier if they do, because once you open one, this file over here, if this file, and you tell this file here to open that file, this file here will use the credentials you previously used to try to get into the remote file. If those credentials don't exist over there, it's going to throw a dialog that says you need credentials for this. That's another certification test question, is that if you're in file A and you want to change data in file B, and there's like 5 questions here. What do you need to have in file B to get into it? One of which is credentials that allow you to do the edit, to the appropriate level of editing. If you're editing data over here, that's one thing. If you want to come over here and do administrative stuff like field definitions, you have to have that level of security. If the password, username, passwords are the same, it'll automatically open it for you. If they're not, you're going to get thrown a dialog. So that's the relationship. So this is the parent. That's the child. So let me just do this real quick. Manage, database, relationships. Do I see anything new over here? I don't see anything new. So what it did is it didn't automatically drop anything on here. So you're like, eh. Okay, so let me do a new, so I hit this, the new TO, table occurrence. I want to give me, now look up here. Most of us all live up here. And it says, these are the tables in your file. But if you have an active external data source, you can get to it right here. These are the 2 relations that we had. This is FM gallery, which is accessible. The path is a global variable. Or we have container TET, which is the one we just created, okay? It says, whoa, is not authorized to open the protected file. Do you want to authorize it? Authorization is a one-time operation of both parties for full access privileges. This is that security thing where we talked about someone swapping in a file to get into your thing. This is kind of the new security thing that comes up. And it says, hey, do you want to authorize this file? Do you trust this file? Now that I've authorized and trusted it, okay, now here it is. That file has super secret stuff in the file, like a super, probably a UUI, almost take it to the bank. It's a UUID probably hidden somewhere. And it is identifiable. So if I swap it out and tell it to open it, it's going to go, hey, this file's not the same file. It's not trusted. Wim DeCourt or Josh Ormond are trying to get into your file. Those are the smartest guys I know who do this stuff, right? Todd Geist, right? Super brilliant people. Jeremy Brown, all these people. So they're trying to get in your file. How do you do this, right? So what happens, people made exploits, showed it to Claris back in the day, and Claris went, oh, and so it's kind of an exploit, but to actually exploit it, you have to be able to If the file's running on the server, the solution's running on the server, they have to be able to get to the server, control the server, and move a file onto, close one of the files, swap a file onto the server. So you'd have administrative control on the server anyway. So it's more of an issue if you have a local copy of solution, or if you're the kind of person that gives everyone access to your server, which would mean that you're not probably a very bright person. I wouldn't do that. So what we did is we've established it over here. It's over here, okay? Now let's go back over on the other side and go to File, Manage, Database. There's the table. Is there anything else there? No. So notice how when we say we build a relationship, it's bidirectional. In a multi-file solution, it's not bidirectional. It could be, but you have to set it up because you have to do all the work twice, right? Because it's a single file solution. You set it up, and the data goes both ways, right? With here, if I want this to be a parent and to see data from over here, I have to go into the relational dialog over here and set that all up over here, right? So if you have a single file solution, it kind of gives you more flexibility. It's easier to manage, easier to do stuff. Here's the other thing. If you have 23 files and you want to change the password, you have to go through the password change thing 23 times. File, manage security, full access, change the password. Oh, new password is whatever. New password is going to be 1234. 1234. Set password. Okay. Oh, get out. Admin. 1234. Now I got to do that 32 times without making a mistake, right? Now I can tell you, me personally, I can't do anything 32 times back to back. I have attention deficit disorder. What'll happen, I'll get to about number 8 over here, then I'll see all this crap that Margaret left on my desktop, and I'll try to start sorting it out and cleaning it up. Because I'd rather clean and be organized than do a rote job 32 times. So that's another reason not to spread all your stuff out. But for single files or those cases where there's a benefit, then you can do it. So the question is, the global's over here, can we get to that global now that we have a relationship? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, in fact, let's try this. I'm going to create a new, I'm going to go to layout mode, layout, new layout. I want to create a computer layout. This is that wizard, like Clippy, the Microsoft Clippy thing. All we're missing is like the little picture of Brad with his face down here. Brad Clippy. Hey, can I help you build a table? So this is going to be, let's just call it TET. Okay, there's TET, right? Form view there, Clippy, form view, finish. Now, we called it TET, but I missed that, screwed that up. I'm going to hit setup over here. I'm going to say, so these are all the tables that are here. Now, TET, is it TE bullet down here below here? Do I see TET over here anywhere? So let me do this. I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go to field definitions over here. I'm going to, it's called contracts. Perfect. All right, let me rename this to something like 555555555. Can I do that? No, of course, because it's an illegal reserved character. Let me change it to A. Okay, it likes that one. Okay. Can I set, that's the name of the TO here, but it's feeding data out of the other side. Can we access the layout from the other side? They may have added this. It's one of those things that back in the day you couldn't do. So let's see if you can do that. Setup, layout. Can we go to AAA? We can. Now can we? You can't do that. And so the idea is that you can have layouts based that live in one file where the data comes out of the other file, which means that the global field should be accessible, right? So I'm over here, I go to fields, I get the TET field, I put it in there, I go browse mode, there it is. So once you establish a relationship, you can base a local layout on the data from another table. This is that data separation model, which I hate and I don't use, which is one reason why I got this wrong 15 minutes ago. So, because people, what they do is they put all the data on one side, they build all the interface on the other side, the data separation, and everyone thinks that's such a great idea until they try to support it, and the person who built it moves on and does something else. It's really hard to do. The big iron companies that spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on basic solutions, For them, that's normal. They split the UI and the data. It's fundamentally how the app's created. In FileMaker, you have to arbitrarily kind of force that. So put all the data here, put all the layouts here. So there's no local tables here really, except maybe a preferences table, right? So interesting, eh?
There is something related to multi-file solutions that we want to talk about how what information is intuitively kept between the passing of files. Because when we made that mobile, do you know what I'm talking about?
Little subtle things that go on between two files, right? One of the things is that you could put a container, if you have a script parameter, and I'm pretty sure this is the case, we could validate this. If you have a script parameter that contains a container, as long as that script is bouncing around in the same file, when you pass a script parameter out the other side comes a container, right? The image of it, like you put a picture of Ruben and a frog or David Angel and a frog. You run that through the script parameter from one side to the other side, or a script result from one side to the other side. That image comes through. If you pass like we should probably try this over here just to verify it. So here is a picture of Richard. And then so I'm going to put that over here. Okay, there's Richard. Okay, and I'm stored externally, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm over here. I'm on this side over here. And so what I want to do is I want to have a script over here that I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say define scripts. I want to say it would go to a layout. Let's see, go to layout. There's only one layout over here. Okay, go to layout, go to the context layout. I'm going to say, it's good. I'm going to say it beeps, and then exit script, and the script result is the container. Okay, so there's your script result. Okay, so I save that. Once again, the script that runs over here, scripts absolutely do not cross-populate. So if you want to do something over here in a script, you have a script over here, right? So I'm just going to say copy container. So there it is. So it's there on this side over here. Okay, then you got this side over here, which is going to be, let's just say, oh, I'm hiding all the contacts. That's perfect, right? Because that was part of yesterday's demo. So let me go there, manage. If you don't see a layout, but you know it's in there, you have to come over here and you have to turn it all back on. Ah, there it is. You got to turn these back on. There's a little bit of delay. If you're doing this on a server, you click. There might be a noticeable delay by Claris as it does this. I don't know why there's a delay. Click, you might have to wait a second or two for it to do that. If you click it and nothing happens, you click it again, it'll flash and turn it, you'll go in circles. All right, so I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna move that back down there. I'm gonna say, close that, we're done. Okay, so we're over here on starting point light. I'm gonna go to a mouse layout that's contacts, that's data entry. Okay, there we go. Now, what I'm gonna do is I got rid of this portal over, this item over here, get rid of that. I'm just like resetting stuff. Then I want to relationally get data out of that other, or call a script, actually is what we want to do, is call a script. So let me, but I need to put the container over here. Here's a container right here. It's called contact container photo. Okay, browse. Okay, so that's got that person over there. I'm gonna say new record. I'm gonna, on this side, oh, it's yesterday's artifacts. It needs to be data entry. There we go. So on a new record, it's not in the list view, script workspace. I'm gonna say new script. Grab image from TET, okay? So then I'm gonna say perform script, right? Perform script. And the script say from a list, fine, from a list, okay? Oh, there we go, I had to click. And normally when you click that, would pop that up. Did it just not do that? Okay, you have to click on the unknown. That's kind of strange. So you come over here and you're like, hey, these are all the scripts that are in this file. So we need the scripts that are in TET. Oh, there's TET. Okay, now TET is going to run. TET issues a script result, which is the post-it note that comes back. Okay, there we go. So what we're doing is we're going to say set. That's set the field on the current record. So I'm going to say target the field. We're in contacts. On TO5, the layout over there belongs on the right side belongs to contacts. I'm going to go to the is it photo? Was it contact photo? What was it called, Mark? Contact container photo right there. We're going to set in there, and then we're going to commit the record with no dialogue. Save, close. Okay, so I'm going to close all that. So then I have a button over here. Make a button. Give me a button. Oh, it's a button bar. Yeah, I want a button, not a button. There we go. Button. Get tet. Or let's say get container from tet. Perform script. Then we had probably at the bottom where it should be. Of course, it's not here. So I need to find the tet script. Grab image from tet. Oh, it's in preferences. Okay, great. Okay, so that's the script. So when we run this, it's going to go to that script, just find something, then it's going to pass the container back as a script result. Okay, I'm going to run this real quick. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is it's beeping, which means it kind of ran. What I'm going to come and do is I'm going to option drag this over here. So I have this. I'm going to say, okay. Oh, it's got a hidden status on it. The little eyeball's hidden. I'm going to remove the hidden status just to make sure that's not affecting it. Come down here. I'm going to go browse. Okay, there's nothing in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run the script debugger. This is one of the things that comes up. We keep running into this. People have bugs. They don't know how to debug it. Turn on script debugger. Okay. In our mind, we should kind of have an idea what's going to happen. So I'm going to press the button here. It's going to say run this, perform script. Then it's going to perform the remote script. Now it brings up the remote script. Now, even though we're seeing it here, FileMaker's focused on this window over here because it jumped over here. It's going to run to that layout. It's going to beep. It's going to exit the script with the script container. Okay. Now on the data viewer, if you bring up the data viewer, what we can do is we can say, watch. We add something over here. Margaret, paying attention to this? This is all relevant to the stuff you're doing. Script result. See, and that's what comes back. So that's the script result. So we can say monitor that. That's the script result. Then we're going to come over here, come down. It's going to set field into. So we're back on this side now. Well, actually, it hasn't exited yet. Oh, it did exit. Okay, so we're back over here on this side. It grabbed it as a script result, passed it back, step down. Invalid command. Set field does not have a calculation specified. Oh, I'm being stupid. All right, let's edit that. I made it wrong. Okay, there we go. I did that. Get, because it should give me some text. It won't give me the picture, but it should give me that text that you saw. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to tell it to stop. I'm going to save it. I'm going to close it. We're going to run it again. Okay. So I'm going to just close that for now. Try to run it again. 1, 2, 3, go. It brought it over. It brought it over this time. So under what conditions does it not bring it? Is it on a hosted solution, on a cloud? It's local here. Or that could have been a bug in the last version of FileMaker. Margaret and I were wrestling with this, where it would not pass the image back through this scenario, and it was hosted on server. So between FileMaker Go, I'd have to try it with Go. But this is as much as anything else, this is just to alert you to the weirdnesses of things that can happen. So, and how to, frankly, some of you don't know how to troubleshoot. I'm not picking on anyone. If that's how you troubleshoot it. And so I made a mistake. Then what I thought wouldn't work did work. So it didn't work before. We should try it again, Margaret, I guess, although we kind of worked our way around it, right? So whenever you have something that doesn't work, so what we did to get around it is that we passed back and forth the base 64 version of the image. So encoded it as text. We passed the text back, then we re-encoded, put it back together. Okay, so everyone knows what base 64 is, right? Well, Ken just asked a question. So Ken, I need you to be engaged here now. 1, 2, 3, paging Ken, hot air balloon Ken. So there is a way to copy field constants from one file to another. We just did it, right? You could also do a set field in a okay. So let's keep going on this. So the script result worked on there. So let's grab. We have nuclear launch codes. Now we're grabbing the data through the relationship, but what if there is no relationship? So, because understand is that there's different levels of connectivity. There's 3 different things you can do. This is really interesting because I haven't played with this like this to this depth in a while. And me trying to explain to you is like, hey, wait a minute, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say File, Manage, Database. I'm going to get rid of this off of here. And I'm going to say, and it'll also say remove the other layouts too. So it is a data source. It's a data source, but there's no connection. File, Manage, external data sources. It's there. In fact, I can get rid of these 3 so they're not causing any confusion. Delete. Okay. So we only have this one. So it's the files are aware of each other, and it established when we connected, established a trust to it. Is that what it did? Is that when that dialog popped up? Was that? Yeah, it was on that. Okay. So let me delete this again. We're going to run this test again. So you can have a script that interacts with the other file without having it on the relationship graph. Here's a hot tip. And this is what we did with FM Gallery. Say that you might or might not, depending upon the situation, a situation you determine in a script. You have a script. So here's the deal. If you're running around with this file right here, this is right now, I guarantee some of you are this is going to be a valuable, here we go, a financially valuable tip, right? Trust me on this. You're in a file like this, and you have some other FileMaker files that you might want to access. If you build the relationship to them, then those files frequently will open implicitly. We're talking about implicit openings versus explicit openings. Explicit openings means that you say, go open that file with a script set, open that file. Implicit means that if I'm on this layout, are there any fields that belong to that on this file? No, this is our local one. There's no images or no data from that other file. If there was, you'd have to have the relationship. So what you can do is you come over here, and this is what we had before, and I kind of just deleted it. External data sources. If this file is like this right here, FileMaker might, out of the blue, open that file, attempt to open that file, okay, implicitly. But if you set it as $, doggy path 5 or 1, okay, it won't connect and open that, and it won't throw an error either if it can't get to it because this has no value in it. See what I'm saying? So if you want to control exactly when you want to pop the other file open, you can prevent FileMaker from even knowing where it's at by not posting the value in the variable in the path to open the external data source. That's why when we ship, we don't, and Nick hasn't really worked on FM Gallery too much lately. He always makes promises he's going to work on it, but he hasn't worked on it. He's a real busy guy, right? But the way the starting points always ship with the support of Gallery. But for it to turn on, you have to give it a proper path. Then FileMaker knows it can see it. But if that path is blank, FileMaker knows that it's not even a valid data source. It doesn't attempt to open it, and it doesn't throw error messages. Yeah, that's a good one. And so but if you give it a path in there, it's like your dog in the backyard. If your dog buries a bone in the backyard, and the dog knows the bone is there, the dog may go back in the backyard and dig it up, right? Dig it up. But if the dog buries or you bury the bone, and your dog doesn't know where it's at, it can't smell it. Dog doesn't know the path to the bone. It can't go dig it up. Or if your dog buries it, you bury it, then you use special Jedi magic to wipe the dog's memory of where it's at. It doesn't know where to go get it. It's like, how many times when you were a kid did you bury 5 or 6, put $1 worth of pennies in a container and bury it underground as secret treasure? Then you come back 6 months later and you can't find it because you can't remember where buried it. And you're digging holes, right? That happened to me. It was in that movie Stand By Me. Poor kid buried, 30 or 40 bucks in coins underneath the front porch of the house and couldn't find it. And so he kept digging holes randomly trying to find where he stuck his money. And so this is kind of that scenario, really valuable. So the idea, if you have external data sources, is to, and this gets back to more of an intermediate conversation in the world of FileMaker, is controlling when FileMaker is going to waste time doing something. You don't want FileMaker on its own digging holes in the backyard, calculating crap it doesn't need to calculate, displaying flashing data, running summary fields it doesn't need to summarize. You want to control when it executes. You want to control when it executes. And to do that, you need it to only respond to things that you do with scripts. The problem is when you build relationships and stuff, FileMaker will try to automatically do things. If you build external data sources, FileMaker may try to open that, right? If it runs across a reason or it needs it, right? Like, it says, get this data off this path. The idea, if you look at starting point, we don't set that path in there unless you have FM Gallery installed. Notice that FileMaker, none of you get dialogues about can't find FM Gallery, call Nick. You don't get those error messages because that path is blank. I was really happy that was kind of I don't know if it was an on-purpose feature that Claris did or is an accidental feature, but either way, I welcome that behavior. It allows you to keep FileMaker from doing stupid things, right? Questions. What happens if the script is on the target file only? If the script is only set field and the TO from that file. So if the script, so if you're over here, and this is for David, and if anyone have questions, let me know because we're going to answer questions and we're done for the day. Welcome to Friday. So the file, this is file B. God, I see my mouse moving. I'm wrestling with Zoom. So this is file, the small file over here. This is our external file. And so we're on file A over here. Okay, so here's A. This data, these are not the same fields. This data is local. Okay, I just deleted it. Nothing happened over here. The script is only over here. Okay. Well, if you're living in this file and this file is hidden or something, there's no way to activate the script over in B. You have to trigger the script in B. How are you going to do that? Well, normally we have a button here in A, runs a script in A that triggers a script in B. Okay. What happens if the script is on the target file only? Then I don't think you can tell the button to go get it. Let's see, grab, let me see. Okay, you could grab, so you can remotely through this method right here, start the script in B, okay? But the script B runs, it's the originating source script, so you couldn't pass anything back, right? There's nothing on this side to receive it because there's no script running on the A side, right? Basically, you told a script to run on B, and it runs in B, and I mean, let's just, let me cancel that. Let me run get container from TET from A, then I'm gonna make it smaller, then I'm gonna get container, well, I'm just gonna say get container from TET directly, okay? And so this is going to do the remote access, the remote turn on. This is the way in the old days, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, this is how we did it all this way. You can see how much I love single file solutions, so much simpler. So there's only one script in TET, copy container, okay? It doesn't do anything. I'm gonna go browse. If I run it, it beeps, it ran over here, right? In fact, what it does, it makes it active. It does some stuff and then it comes back, but it's happening so fast, you're not seeing the screen flash. And notice that nothing happens over here because all it did over there was it beeped. I think it goes to a layout and beeps, right? Oh, wrong. Your script workspace. The scripts are here in this workspace, command script workspace. Oh, I don't see the script. You come over here. That's a different script workspace, right? Here's this script workspace, different than that one. All it does is goes to layout, beeps, and then it exits. So you can trigger the remote script, but if you want to get the data, David, you figured out you have to have some way of piping the data back through, right? Yeah, here's the deal. Variables don't live between files. That's an absolute non-negotiable, okay? Scripts live in one file or the other file, right? So if you want file A to do file B, file A has to run a script in B. B sets a variable to some data, okay? The way you'd pass it back is you have to have a script parameter with one of those like techniques where you put like value in script parameter, Margaret, then like a carriage return or some sort of piping delimited. There's a couple techniques for doing that, passing data back and forth. or you could load it into globals over here that you could grab then over here. Like say you have like matching global fields and you go to the thing, you find it and you post them over here into globals, right? This is a global right now, but you get the idea. Then you come over here and grab it. Can you grab it without the relationship? Let me try that. I don't think you can. I'm just going to define another container. I'm going to say, okay, that is the original container. This is this container. I'm going to call it container. Did I define that as a container? I didn't. I'm stupid. 1 second. My mouth is outpacing my brain. Okay, so you've got script workspace. So you can't do a set field because there's no relationship to get it out of, right? And you can't do, because there's no relationship, you can't grab it as a global, right? So we're back to this tet thing here. Let me see the tet thing here real quick. Tet. So the tet, when we run it, it's going to set the script result. But if I just do another set script right here, just for fun, set field, I set to the container, and then I specify, I don't have a relationship here. Remember, because we got rid of the TO. So file A is aware of file B. File B is not aware of file A, strictly speaking, right? Because file B doesn't have a remote connection back to A, and it doesn't have a relationship back. Remember, you first have to have the external data source, then optionally you can set have a remote relationship. A has the remote data source, it doesn't have the relationship, so you can't get it through a relationship here. Variables are isolated. Yeah, so if you try to move data from file B to file A, either do it, and all you have is the remote external data source. You have to do it through a script parameter. If you set a relationship, which means that it might open it up periodically unbeknownst to you in the background because it thinks it needs it, you could cause yourself performance problems, but then you could get it through a relationship, right? Variables don't help you at all because variables can't move between file A to file B. You could place relationship, place in relationship, the remote TO. Could place in relationship. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what we had before. If you build a relationship on the A side, on the parent side, then you have all that relationship goodness you can get, which means you can get the globals. If it's a global field, you can move them into global fields and bring them across. So people say, what's the difference in global fields? Is that, and a global variable, is that global fields can be tapped through a relationship between files, and global variables cannot. There's no way to tap them, access them. You have to load them into the script parameter and move them across. This is good stuff. Once again, it opens up a whole can of worms, with multi-file solutions. So don't do it unless you have a compelling reason to do it. Like over here is a giant, not this one. Over here is like a giant repository of, right? Like maybe a repository of every mailing address in the United States. The post office has a repository of every mailing address in the United States. In the old days, we would bring that over, every zip code, every address, millions and millions and millions of records. You could put that over here and access it remotely from multiple solutions. Now it would be a service you would access via API, but I'm saying that's the kind of scenario. All right, well, I think that's it for Friday. Everyone's been kind of quiet and well-behaved. All right, you folks have a good Friday. You are awesome. I love the questions. Send an email to support, RC Consulting, if you have a question. And once again, we're continuing to adjust the conversation as we go. It's good stuff. All right, that's it. See ya.
report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.